of Ed control over exercising the ERO option, but it doesn't do anything to stop ERO. So I was really questioning when I saw this resolution if this is what the board had even intended. So I had some discomfort not with the resolution. I think I understand what IASB is asking. Not even asking, they already have a position on it. All we'd be doing is say, hey, we're jumping on the bandwagon and we're going along with you. But I'm not so sure that's what our board was after.
Where is the resolution?
It's
that one page.
It's this page?
That's
okay,
it.
I thought it was the...
No, it's the page before that.
It's this page?
Right.
Yes. And is it this, the statement of rationale?
The position statement, the resolution is just that we reaffirm position statement 514. And if you go under the statement of rationale, it's just we support legislation that allows the Board of Education to determine if a teacher may take ERO.
Right, and all they're doing, from my understanding, is when this comes up for discussion in, what, another year or two, they're going to go before legislation and say, this is what we want to see passed. But this is not passed today.
Right, that's correct.
And this has not been passed for the last 15 years, so this has nothing to do with us being able to get out.
Right.
Now, are we saying, now, so I think we're talking about two different things here. I think we're talking about, hey, are we going to support their, whatever they do in the future, number one, and number two is just a general ERO discussion. So if we can break them into two separate ones, Karen, you're our IASB representative.
Mark, hold on 1 second. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have that ERO conversation first as a more thorough understanding of ERO to know whether or not we should take a position on this.
Understood. My question isn't to ask to pass this. My question is, can you define what this is?
Okay, so back in September when this all came about, I called Ben Schwarm, he is our representative, and asked him if there was any verbiage or anything out there on the books that could help us. I sent him the information about our penalty. Help, it's basically help. We need help. How do we stop this? And he said, well, we've tried. He said, we have passed this in 2006. Basically, this means nothing as far as I'm concerned. But this is, he said, if we can try to get this, but they won't even accept this. The
they being
ERO.
State legislature.
I'm sorry, the state legislature, right. So he said, what you need to do probably, is my recommendation is just to reaffirm that statement because we're going to try to put it through again. He said to discontinue, you don't want to take it completely out because you want to have an option in case you have a teacher that you would like to ask to kind of retire in a nice way, like you would be willing to give them that option. His recommendation was not to change the word, but just to reaffirm this. We have an option to try to come up with a statement to change it, but basically it's like, good luck at this point.
Which is basically what our legislation wrote to us in their letter and said, we're not even going to consider it now. Thanks for writing.
That's exactly right. So I don't know. I mean, if we want to come up with a stronger statement, that's absolutely, But he said that this basically they haven't even been able to.
But this in or out of any contract is meaningless because it doesn't stand pat against what state law is.
Right.
And state law currently allows an ERO option.
But I think what I was trying to say before, where you said maybe it was misrepresented, I know that in making a bunch of calls and trying to find out what are other districts doing, and they said that after they got that letter from the IASB in 2005, that they tightened up their contracts. So that's what we did, or that's where we went to Terry to ask her, what do we need to add? What, we have nothing. So that's where I'm thinking that that's what the next step would be, that trying to fight the state's not going to help us, but if we try to protect ourselves in our own.
But my understanding, even going back to this past contract negotiation time, was that there's nothing you can do to strengthen, to scare a teacher from saying, oh, I'm not going to take ERO. So what the other districts are doing are actually giving a reward. That's what we got, basically when we asked back in whenever the heck we asked, and we got that original letter, I think it's dated September or October 28th, one of the two, basically said you have to give a financial incentive for them not to take it. So it isn't so much putting language in there that says, oh, it's disallowed or discouraged or whatever, because they have that right.
But there was a promissory promissory note that we would ask them to sign as a part of their contract stating that if there were penalties, that they would be responsible for it.
So maybe, okay, all right, you cringe.
Yeah.
You cringe on that
Right.
statement. So
Right.
could we perhaps at this point
Right.
defer to you to kind of comment on ERO and truly your understanding of what districts can and cannot do?
Okay, if I can put it in context, we've had the ERO, early retirement option, attached to part of the teacher retirement system 20 to 30 years. It's been around a long time in various guises. At one time in the early 1990s, we had a period of time in which teachers had a different version of ERO and could actually retire between age 50 and 55. That only was in a statute for 5 to 7 years. That disappeared. We're sort of subject to whatever the legislature wants to do to the teacher retirement system. Since that time, the ERO option that's existed in the law from about the mid-1990s till now has allowed teachers to go out at age 55 with less than the traditional 35 years of service. And if they go out, generally you would suffer a discount in your pension annuity because the general rules under the teacher retirement system are you have to be age 60 and you have to have 35 years of service. Before 35 years of service, they keep changing that. And then you get what's called the full pension annuity. So under the early retirement option, as it's written in the law, if you go out earlier, your pension would normally be discounted. To avoid the discount, the law imposed what we call the discount penalty payment and chose to impose that on both the employee and on the employer school district. So you have a dual system of penalties. And you can't avoid that if a teacher chooses to go out under ERO. The school district has to pay its penalty. The employee has to pay his or her own penalty. Under some collective bargaining contracts for a long period of time, districts have even agreed to pay the employee's portion of the penalty. And I don't know if you know about how these penalties work, but they're staggered. You pay a bigger penalty if a teacher goes out closer to age 55 than age 59 because the discount is bigger. What you're essentially doing is buying out the pension discount by paying this penalty payment. We have no choice if a member of the TRS system decides to go out under ERO, with the exception written into the law that we can cap the number of folks who go out, who are eligible and apply to go out in any 1 year. The last time the legislature dealt with ERO, it was probably around 2005 when we had that major pension reform. The 6% caps, the sick leave penalty. They actually lowered what had been a 30% cap. No, actually worked it the other way. I'm saying this in the inverse. We were mandated to allow at least 30% of those who were eligible for ERO to go out. They worked that down to the current 10% cap. So actually we have a little bit more flexibility than we did in the past. Mark, you want a question?
Question, just clarification on the 10%. 11%, if you have 100 administrators and
they're eligible.
Right, and 12 come to you, you can turn down 2 based on seniority. You can turn down 2 because you're only allowing 10 because 10% of your staff or
10% of those who are eligible.
Oh, okay. All right. So then let me reword it. Well, I don't need to reword it as much as I want to understand the declining of personnel based on seniority. Is it based on number of years in TRS or number of years in the district?
No, it's based on your district definition of seniority.
Okay.
Yeah, so years of service in the district.
Okay.
Okay.
So
for
it's not, it's not 10% that want to retire. It's 10% of those that are eligible to retire.
Yeah, which is
Under ERO.
Under ERO.
Yeah, but listen to what you're going to say next, because this is a key point for Pleasantdale.
In a smaller district where you have so few people eligible, you're almost always going to have to allow that one person to go out. and you have no choice. Now, if you would happen to have an influx of 5 people step forward in any one year,